All right, so this is the podcast version of the poem that I've written today, called "Choose Your Story," and I think I'll start by reading the poem, and then we'll talk about it a little bit. It is possible to serve the light for your own sake, to be dark inside, filthy with secret pride, while outwardly stacking up your achievements, allowing others to laud your name, and never once realizing that your soul is lost, not in gross immorality, but in the actor's game, the hypocrite's play. Listen closely to yourself. Is your story one of redemption, or is it the hero's myth? They are not the same story. I have a deep distrust for the latter and an unfailing affection for the former. So don't tell me how you slew the dragon. Tell me about the dragon inside of you. That's the story I long to hear, because he lives inside me too, and it is all I can do with the help of God to find my way. So, I wrote this. This is has a little bit of a darker edge on it today, I suppose. I thought of it because of something I've observed, and that is, in particular, within the within religious framework. But perhaps that's because that's where I've noticed it the most. But as I consider it, I think that it crops up everywhere, and that is that there seems to be a cycle in that when you have a truly good person, usually that person will have achieved a kind of redemption through struggle and through looking deep within for their own faults and failings and sins. And then that person will produce offspring. and those offspring inherit goodness. And when they receive as an inheritance. So, for example, if I'm not addicted to drugs, it's a good chance my kids have a better chance of not falling into the same problems. And so they get this kind of goodness, you could say, almost on loan. And they believe that it's theirs. You can see some people too will be gifted with certain talents or abilities. Maybe they're super smart. They are talented. Perhaps they have a particular drive and willpower that a lot of people don't have. And they consider that, and we all do this, I should say we consider that our talents, our gifts, are achievements, but they're really not that. It's like, if I have perfect pitch, yay. Now, there may be a certain part of, it's like if I'd never studied music or I never took the time, I never would even discover that I had perfect pitch. But there may be a certain amount of that can be acquired, but I think most people would agree that it's largely a gift. And so I can begin to think that I'm somebody special. And so it's a malady If I were born into poverty, I would have a different set of maladies. If I were the underdog, I would have a tendency to fall into self-pity. But I um, because I um, because I because I may fall into the category of people who are talented or gifted or particularly spiritual because my parents did a good job. Um, I'm gonna um, I'm gonna think that's because of me. It can even be well. I've heard it said once that there's so many ways to sin. That it's hard to describe all the ways that this can creep in, this kind of pride. But in my personal life, I've seen it. I've seen it in myself, and I've seen it in others. And it is so deceiving because it's possible to do all the right things for the wrong reasons. And it's really hard to detect these people. But there are those who they never notice that this is a problem. And it's because they can look at their lives and go, well, I did this and I did that and I did the other thing. And so that was what was on my mind today when I wrote this. The bigger question, the thing I don't know what to convey is what to do about it. As far as yourself goes, I think the best thing that you can do is to try to be, if you're listening to this right now and you think that you're a really good person, maybe that's a sign. Maybe that's a sign. If you find yourself around a lot of people who, maybe you're in an organization, a religious framework, whatever, where nobody ever talks about the things they did wrong. You'll hear them get up and laud, all the attributes and, or they'll talk about sin always in a hypothetical way. But you never hear the stories where they say, there was this one time when I did this thing and I was very ashamed. And this was how I found my way to redemption. It's like, if you don't hear those stories, then it's very likely that this particular type of darkness has crept in amongst the people. And it disguises itself as light. I love, there's something I think Paul said about that the devil will appear even as an angel of light. It's like, yeah, this is kind of one of those things. But it's not an actual apparition. It's a spirit which manifests itself, and which is so deceiving. But I've kind of come to the point where I do not feel drawn. I have a hard time talking to people who it appears from everything they say and everybody around them that everything has always and is altogether. I have a deep distrust for that. And I love any time I hear somebody talk about their own redemption story, their own inner demons, and how they have grappled with them or are grappling with them. Not in hypothetical ways, as if, well, if you have this problem, then, but no, this is how I had this problem. And this is how I found my way toward the light. It's not to say that we have to give details. None of us want to hear necessarily the awful details of your worst and most shameful things. But but then again, maybe there is a time and a place for that too, right? But so to go back, I rabbit trail just a little. To go back, if you find yourself amongst a group of people who you begin to suspect are kind of whited sepulchres, who they've done everything, you hear the story of their life and it's just incredible. It's beautiful. I wonder if a good policy perhaps is, number one, I wonder if it's wise to avoid condemnation, to acknowledge the goodness, and to be grateful for those people because they contribute in their own way. But number two, I wonder if it is good to begin your own redemption story, to begin to find people who you can surround yourself with who like to talk about their own struggles. And the way to do that, I think, is to talk about your own. And you may find that hard at first. You may find that very difficult to do. It takes, but it'll very quickly show you who's interested in that sort of thing. To say, amongst your group, your peers, there was a time when I was lost. And I had this particular problem. And sometimes Stephen said, I still struggle with such and such. And then let the conversation go from there. As I think about it, I wonder if it's possible to even do that with the intention of looking good to ourselves. So, but I'll say this though, it does seem to me that it is a sign of sincerity when somebody exposes something that could cause them to not look good. I don't find many people doing that who aren't sincerely looking for the light and not trying to hide in the darkness. So this one went a little long, but I guess this is short for a podcast, 15 minutes. So anyway, that's today's offering. We'll see if anybody is able to or wants to listen to the whole 15. And thanks and God bless. Have a good one.